The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft golden hue over the quiet suburban neighborhood as Anna pulled into the driveway of her childhood home. It had been months since her last visit, and despite the routine calls and video chats, nothing compared to being back in the place where she had grown up. The sight of the old oak tree in the front yard, its branches still climbing toward the sky, filled her with a warm sense of nostalgia. As she stepped out of the car and made her way up the front steps, the door opened before she could even knock. Her father stood there, smiling widely, his eyes lighting up with joy. "Look who finally made it," he said, pulling her into a tight hug. She laughed, burying her face in his shoulder for a moment, comforted by his familiar scent and steady presence. Inside, the house hadn't changed much. The walls were still lined with family photos, the wooden floor still creaked in the same places, and the living room had that same cozy feel with its old leather couch and the fireplace that hadn't seen much use in recent years. They spent the next hour catching up, sitting at the kitchen table over coffee, sharing stories about work, friends, and memories. Her father cracked jokes like always, and Anna found herself laughing more freely than she had in weeks. As the evening wore on, her dad suggested taking a photo together. "It's been too long since we've had a decent picture," he said, reaching for his phone. Anna agreed and went to prop the phone up on a bookshelf with the timer set. They posed in front of the fireplace, her leaning against her father, both smiling brightly. The timer blinked, and the phone clicked. A perfect, simple moment frozen in time. Neither of them noticed anything unusual then, only the warmth of being together again. After the photo was taken, Anna walked over to the shelf and retrieved the phone, chuckling as she checked the screen. The image had come out surprisingly well for a timed shot, sharp and well framed. She turned the screen toward her dad, who leaned in, squinting through his reading glasses and nodding with approval. "Not bad for two amateurs," he joked, elbowing her gently. Anna laughed, pleased that their spontaneous photo captured more than just their faces. It captured a moment of ease, of familiarity, of something unspoken that only existed between a parent and child. They took a few more for fun, switching poses and making silly faces like they used to when she was a teenager. One with her father crossing his eyes, another with Anna dramatically pretending to faint in his arms. The house was filled with laughter, echoing off the walls in a way it hadn't in a long time. For a brief stretch of time, it felt like nothing in the world could intrude on their happiness. Eventually, they settled on the couch, flipping through the gallery of the photos they'd just taken. "We still got it," Anna teased, scrolling slowly. Her father chuckled and took a sip of the tea she had made earlier, content. Outside, the sky had deepened into a bluish dusk, casting long shadows through the windows. Inside, the lamp by the sofa gave off a warm glow, and the fireplace, though unlit, remained a backdrop of homely comfort. They paused again on the original photo, the one they had taken first. Anna enlarged it slightly with a pinch of her fingers on the screen, admiring how natural and happy they both looked. "Frame that one," her dad said. "It's got that genuine spark." She smiled and nodded, not realizing just yet that this would become the photo she'd look at again and again that night, only to discover something that would send chills down her spine. But in that moment, it was just a beautiful memory. A photo of a father and daughter, safe in the heart of the home they both loved. The evening drifted into a gentle quiet as Anna settled into her old bedroom upstairs, the one that had remained nearly untouched since she moved out years ago. Her father had kept it just the way she left it, posters still on the wall, her bookshelf lined with worn paperbacks, and the old desk by the window where she used to do her homework. She sat on the edge of her bed, the familiar creak beneath her a strange but comforting sound, and pulled her phone out to wind down by scrolling through the day's photos. The brightness of the screen cast a soft light on her face as she lay back, kicking off her shoes. She swiped past the silly selfies and paused on the first photo they had taken together, the one by the fireplace. There was something serene about it, the soft lighting, their natural smiles, the cozy background. She smiled to herself, her heart warming with the joy of the day. But as she looked at the photo a little longer, her smile began to fade ever so slightly. Something felt off. At first, she couldn't put her finger on it. It wasn't the composition or the lighting. It was something subtler, something in the background. She sat up, her brows drawing together in a faint frown. Enlarging the photo with her fingers, she focused her attention on the mirror above the mantel. The reflection captured in it was supposed to show the room behind them, but instead, there was a vague, shadowy form that hadn't been there in real life. She squinted, leaning in, her heart skipping a beat. What looked like the faint outline of a person stood just beyond the hallway, almost out of sight, shrouded in darkness. It wasn't clear, but it was distinct enough to look like more than just a trick of the light. A cold prickle crept up her spine. She looked toward the hallway from her bed, then back at the screen, her fingers frozen on the glass. There had only been 2 of them in the house. She was sure of it. Shaking her head, she blinked a few times and tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a smudge, a glitch, or a play of shadows. But the unease had settled in now, quiet but persistent. Something wasn't right, and the more she stared at the image, the more the figure seemed to become clearer. Anna's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the photo. The figure in the mirror was no longer something she could dismiss. It wasn't a smudge or a flicker of light. The outline had form, human form. Shoulders, a head, what looked like long hair. It stood partially hidden in the hallway behind them, visible only in the mirror's reflection, yet it had no presence in the rest of the photo. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the phone closer to her face, zooming in even more. The figure's posture was rigid, its head tilted ever so slightly to the side, as though watching them. It looked impossibly still, as though it had been standing there the entire time. Her heart began to thud heavily in her chest. The silence of the house, once comforting, now felt heavy and unsettling. The soft creak of the floor downstairs, a sound she had once loved, now made her skin crawl. She stood up slowly, her bare feet pressing against the old wooden floor. The hallway outside her room loomed, dim and silent. She reached for the door handle, pausing as her fingers hovered over it, suddenly uncertain. What was she even expecting to find? Gathering her courage, Anna opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The light from her phone illuminated the walls in front of her. The same family portraits lined the corridor, smiling faces frozen in time. She walked slowly, her eyes scanning every corner, every doorway, listening for anything, movement, a whisper, the slightest sound. Nothing. She reached the top of the stairs and looked down into the darkness. Below, a soft light still glowed from the living room lamp, casting long, slanting shadows on the walls. From where she stood, she could see the mirror above the fireplace, the same mirror that had reflected the figure. Her breath quickened. She called out softly, "Dad." No answer. She tried again, louder this time. "Dad, are you still up?" His voice floated back after a moment, casual and unaware of her growing fear. "Yeah, just cleaning up a bit. You okay?" Anna hesitated. "Yeah, I just thought I saw something in the photo." He came to the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her with a furrowed brow. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "In the mirror. Behind us." Her father glanced toward the living room, then back at her. "There was no one else here, Anna. Just you and me." She nodded slowly, trying to convince herself it was nothing. But the way the air felt now, thick, almost electric, told her otherwise. Something wasn't right. Something unseen had been there with them, watching, hiding in plain sight. And it had revealed itself in the photo without a sound. Anna descended the stairs slowly, each creak of the wooden steps echoing a little too loudly in the otherwise still house. Her father waited at the bottom, concern etched across his face as he watched her. The playful energy that had filled the home earlier had vanished, replaced by a growing sense of unease. She handed him the phone without a word, her finger pointing to the photo. He took it, adjusting his glasses, and peered at the image. For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes squinted slightly as he zoomed in, tracing the faint figure in the mirror. "That's strange," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "It almost looks like someone standing back there." Anna crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. "But no one was. We were the only ones here. You locked the front door, and I came in through the garage, remember?" "I know," he said slowly, still staring at the screen. "I didn't hear anything, no footsteps, no voices. Nothing." She could hear the doubt creeping into his voice, and that only deepened her own fear. They both turned their heads toward the hallway in the photo, the one that led to the back of the house. It was dark now, the light in that section having been turned off after dinner. The shadows seemed deeper somehow, like they were waiting. Without saying anything, her father walked toward the hallway, flicking on the light as he went. Anna followed close behind, her heart pounding in her chest. They checked each room, starting with the small guest bathroom. Nothing. Then the laundry room. Empty. The back door was locked from the inside, the deadbolt still in place. They stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the closed door that led to the basement. Her father reached for the knob, then paused. "We haven't used the basement in a while," he said. "Just storage down there." Anna didn't respond. The air around them felt colder than before, like an unseen presence was hovering nearby. Finally, he turned the knob and opened the door. The basement steps creaked as he flipped the switch, flooding the space with a weak, flickering light. Carefully, they stepped down together, scanning the space with wary eyes. Dusty boxes. Old furniture draped in sheets. A few spider webs in corners. Everything was just as it should be, and yet the tension remained. When they returned upstairs, Anna locked the basement door behind them without being asked. Her father handed her the phone again. Could be a trick of the light. Reflections can do strange things. But his voice lacked conviction. They sat down in the living room in silence. The mirror above the fireplace gleamed faintly, and Anna couldn't help but glance at it over and over again. The reflection was normal now. Just the room, just them. But the memory of that shadowy figure lingered, impossible to forget. Something had been there. She could feel it in her bones. Anna sat with the photo in her lap, the glow from her phone the only light in the room aside from the soft lamp by the fireplace. Her father sat beside her, unusually quiet, his eyes distant. The mood had shifted. What began as a light-hearted evening had turned into something tense, uneasy, and hard to explain. She zoomed in on the photo again, staring into the mirror. The figure was more visible than ever before, or maybe her eyes were just adjusting to what they didn't want to believe. There was no denying it now. The shape had definition. It was a woman, standing still, facing the camera but not directly. Her head was turned slightly, her expression unreadable. Her clothing was dated, long sleeves, a high collar, something that looked like it belonged in another century. The figure had an unsettling stillness, as if she were not just caught in the mirror's reflection, but emerging from it. "I've never seen that person before," Anna said softly, her voice thin. Her father didn't reply immediately. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped tightly. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his tone lower than usual. "She looks familiar." Anna turned to look at him. Familiar how? He rubbed his forehead, a gesture she recognized from childhood, one he always made when something troubled him. "Years ago, your grandmother had a photograph. A very old one. There was a woman who looked just like this. Same face. Same eyes." He looked at Anna with a seriousness she rarely saw in him. "She was your great-great-aunt. Her name was Lillian." Anna frowned. "I don't remember ever hearing about her. She wasn't talked about much. Lived in this house long before we moved in. It was passed down through the family. Lillian died when she was very young. Some kind of accident. Or maybe something worse." There were whispers, but no one really said. Anna stared back at the photo, a chill moving through her. "You think this is her?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But that mirror, your grandmother always said it belonged to Lillian. After your grandmother passed, I brought it out of storage a few months ago. I thought it might look nice here again." Anna's gaze shifted slowly to the mirror above the fireplace. The edges were ornate, carved with swirls and floral patterns. It did have a vintage elegance, but now it seemed to dominate the room in a quiet, oppressive way. She stood up slowly, stepping closer to it. The reflection showed only the living room now. Nothing unusual. Still, she felt something, like a presence, hovering behind the glass. Watching. "She's tied to it," Anna said aloud, not even sure why she believed it, only that she did. Her father didn't argue. He simply looked at the mirror, his face pale. "If that's true, we might need to do something about it." Anna nodded slowly, her thoughts racing. What had once been a cherished piece of family furniture might now be a window, or worse, a doorway. And Lillian, or whatever remained of her, had finally shown herself. The atmosphere in the room grew heavier with each passing second, as if the very walls were absorbing the tension between Anna and her father. The mirror above the fireplace, once a simple decorative piece, now seemed alive, ominous, commanding attention even in its silence. Anna couldn't take her eyes off it. Her mind replayed the image from the photo again and again, the woman's rigid posture, the old-fashioned clothes, and the eerie calm on her face. She felt a gnawing certainty deep in her gut. The figure wasn't just some strange apparition. It was Lillian. Her father stood slowly and walked toward the bookcase, his fingers trailing along the spines of old albums and dusty photo books. He pulled one out, worn at the edges, and opened it on the coffee table. Pages flipped under his fingers until he paused on a black and white photograph. He turned it toward Anna. "There," he said, pointing to a young woman standing at the edge of a group. "That's Lillian." Anna leaned in. Her breath hitched. It was her. The same solemn eyes, the same expressionless mouth, and even the same long dress with delicate lace at the collar. She looked almost identical to the figure in the photo they had taken, except in the photograph, she was surrounded by people. Alive. Real. What happened to her? Anna asked. Her father hesitated. The family never told me much. Just that she died in this house. I think she was only in her early 20s. Some said it was illness, others said it was something darker. Your grandmother once mentioned she became withdrawn, obsessed with mirrors. She used to talk to them, swore she could see things no one else could. Anna's skin crawled. The room felt colder now, like a breeze had passed through though all the windows were closed. She glanced again at the mirror. And that mirror. It was in her bedroom, he said. After she died, your great-grandfather covered it and stored it in the attic. No one wanted it around. But when I cleaned out the attic last winter, I found it. I didn't know the full story. I thought, maybe it was just an old family legend. So I brought it down. Anna stepped closer to the mirror. She could see her own reflection clearly now, but something about it didn't sit right. The reflection seemed too still, like it was waiting for something. She remembered the feeling from earlier, that prickling sensation at the back of her neck, like eyes on her skin. If she's tied to it, Anna whispered, if something happened to her that left her soul behind, maybe she's trapped. Her father nodded grimly. Maybe. Or maybe she doesn't even know she's gone. Anna reached out, her fingers hovering just a breath away from the mirror's cold surface. Her reflection stared back, but the room behind her in the glass seemed dimmer than it was in reality, like the mirror held a shadow world of its own. She couldn't shake the sense that something was on the other side, close enough to reach through. They stood in silence for a long moment. The weight of the past pressed in from all sides. What had begun as a joyful reunion between father and daughter had become something far more mysterious, and potentially dangerous. The mirror wasn't just a relic. It was a tether to something, or someone, long forgotten. And now, she had come back. That night, sleep refused to come. Anna lay in bed, the covers pulled up to her chin, her body tense beneath them. The house, usually a haven of peace and childhood memories, now felt foreign, like it was holding its breath. The mirror loomed large in her thoughts, its image burned into her mind. No matter how much she tried to reason it away, the figure in the photo haunted her. And worse, she could feel something stirring. Watching. Waiting. Down the hall, her father hadn't gone to bed either. She heard his footsteps moving occasionally, sometimes stopping in the living room, sometimes pacing quietly near the staircase. Neither of them said anything. They were both processing something too big to name. Anna's thoughts raced. What if Lillian wasn't just trapped in the mirror, but trying to come back? What if the mirror was a doorway, a portal that had remained dormant for decades, until now? At some point past midnight, a soft creak sounded just outside her bedroom door. Anna froze, eyes wide in the dark. She held her breath and listened. Another step, slow, deliberate. She sat up, heart pounding. "Dad," she called out softly. No answer. She swung her legs off the bed and stood, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. She opened the door cautiously and looked out into the hallway. Empty. The house was silent again. But she could feel it, an energy in the air, thick like fog, pressing against her skin. She turned toward the staircase, and that's when she saw it. A figure stood in front of the mirror downstairs, just barely visible in the moonlight pouring in from the window. Anna's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't her father. This figure was taller, thinner, wearing what looked like an old-fashioned dress. The same silhouette from the photograph. Frozen, Anna could only watch as the figure slowly lifted a hand toward the mirror, fingertips grazing the glass. The gesture was eerily graceful, like muscle memory. The mirror shimmered faintly, like light bending on water. Anna felt a pressure behind her eyes, a pull in her chest. Something was happening. Suddenly, the figure turned its head toward her. Though the face was still veiled in shadow, Anna saw the faint outline of eyes that looked directly into hers. Not at her reflection, at her. Her knees nearly gave out, but she forced herself to stay standing. The figure stepped closer to the mirror, then paused, as if waiting. The house seemed to groan around them, the wood creaking and shifting. Then, without a sound, the figure vanished. Gone. The mirror showed only the living room again. Anna stumbled back into her room, heart racing, slamming the door shut behind her. She pressed her back to it, her hands trembling. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. She had seen her. Lillian. The realization settled in her chest like ice. The mirror was not just a relic or a portal, it was a prison. And something had begun to stir inside it. Anna didn't know what Lillian wanted, or why she had appeared now. But she knew one thing for certain. The past was no longer resting. It was reaching out.